Welcome to the Institute of All Intelligent Life. My name is Allan Keislar. We are continuing our discussion of extraterrestrial spirituality, and we're going to begin discussing today what is probably the most difficult of all the subjects, of all the topics that we are going to be discussing in this course. And I guess it's fair to say the most difficult topic of any course or any class or any discussion. And that is understanding God, the nature of God. So I want to first make two statements. The unity of God, the oneness of God, is the first and most important idea or understanding of God that we must accept and we must understand. This understanding and this acceptance comes through spiritual perception. We may say faith, but faith really means knowledge. It means spiritual perception. So that being said, the oneness of God is the first, most fundamental reality that must be understood in order to gain any real understanding of God. Then we must progress beyond that. In other words, that's not everything about God, is to understand that God is one. That's only the beginning of real and true understanding. There are false understandings of God, definitely. Many false understandings of God, very common throughout human history and human experience. But the understanding that God is one, the unity and oneness of God, that is real knowledge of God. That is eternal truth. So I'm not going to discuss that now because I think, thanks to the efforts, as I've described earlier in this course, of many prophets, and culminating with the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, this concept of the oneness of God has been fully established. So we're going to proceed on from there, not to say that that's not important or that's not something that we need to understand fully, but because it is so well established now, not by everybody, understood by everybody, but for the purposes of this course, we're going to take that as a presupposition. We're not going to try to discuss or prove or argue that point. I will just say that to the reflective human mind that has been a little bit enlightened, just the idea that the source of everything must be one, that is sufficient. That's all I'm going to say about the oneness of God. Okay, we can philosophically or theoretically understand that point, that the original source of everything must be single, must be one. All right, now the second point, I said there were 2 points that are especially important. The second point is personality, consciousness, awareness. In other words, we can have an understanding of God as one in a very philosophical, abstract sense, without understanding very much about that original source of everything. So that's a very clear philosophical concept. God is one and God is the source of everything. But to explore the nature of that source and to understand divinely revealed teachings about God as merciful, God as loving, God as aware, aware not only of everything but aware of us individually, this can be a challenge for many people. So this is the topic that we're going to especially talk about today. So again, I can mention that a lot of these ideas are coming from the Urantia book. I have mentioned this book in the last few days, and I made a post about it, which you may have read. If you haven't, you can look at that after the class. It will be just below this class on my Facebook page. But what's important at this point is to open our minds to this idea, because it's difficult to understand. It's very difficult for most of us to understand this, so I'm going to take some time with this. First of all, personality does not mean limitation. For us, usually, because our experience of personality means mostly human personalities who are limited, we are very limited, we think of personality as meaning limitation. But that doesn't logically follow. Just because in our experience a personality is someone who's limited, it doesn't mean that the unlimited cannot have a personality. Or, to put it the other way around, if God does not have personality, where has our personality come from? In other words, we all experience ourselves as persons. You are a person, an individual person. You have your personal differences, not only bodily differences, but differences of the way you think, differences not only from the training that you received as a child and as a student, but differences of mentality that are part of your nature. So each of us is a unique individual personality. In the same way, think about this for a minute, God is also a unique individual personality. Otherwise, where does our uniqueness and our individuality come from? Otherwise, where does our personality come from? So everything that we have, God must have, but in an unlimited, in an infinite way. So, just briefly, we are limited persons. God is an unlimited person. God is an infinite person. So we usually think of personalities as persons, well, I'm a person, you're a person. I'm sitting in one place. I'm in Esparto, California. You may be in any place on this planet. Or who knows, some people from off this planet may be watching also. But wherever you are, you're in one place. That is the nature of human personality. To be limited. We're limited to one place. Or there may be some ways that human beings can be present in more than one place at once, but that's kind of rare. And it's certainly not possible for a human being to be everywhere at the same time. It's just beyond the capability of humanity. But God is everywhere at the same time. But still, God is a personality. So this is a little bit of a discussion. I'm just going to continue on this topic, just to a few more points, because this is actually essential. In extraterrestrial spirituality, there is a lot of difference of opinion about some of these issues. As I've said before, it's pretty widely accepted, as far as I've experienced, from different extraterrestrial sources. There's usually very little question that there is one original source of everything. And that source is often considered a mystery, but it's acknowledged that there must be one individual source of everything. Maybe not individual in the sense of being an individual, being a personality. Many people don't understand that point. But that's the main point that I'm going to be discussing today, that we need to realize if we want to progress in our understanding about the reality, the truth of God. So I'm just going to review very briefly 1 or 2 points here. God is one. That is the first fundamental truth about God that must be understood. And 2, God is a personality. That means God is a conscious being. In other words, we can think about God as one, the source of everything, but not impute consciousness to that one. In fact, that's what some philosophers say. They take that position, that original source of everything, whether it's a scientist who says it's a Big Bang, they never think of that Big Bang as being a conscious reality. They think it's unconscious, and consciousness gradually developed over eons of gradual evolution. But what I am suggesting, and what the Urantia book and many, many other extraterrestrial sources also say, is that that original source of everything must be conscious, must be aware, must be a personality, must be an individual. Maybe that's a little more difficult because that's a little more striking, I guess. But the idea that God must be conscious, that isn't too much of a stretch for most people. So I'm just going to talk about that first. God must be conscious. Consciousness is something that we possess. We're aware. But we are very, very limited. Our consciousness often is limited only to our body. That is, I can feel if there's a stomach ache in my stomach, I can feel it, you can't. If you're having a headache, you're aware of it. Other people around you generally are not. Although, often because of love and empathy, we can actually feel somebody else's pain. But basically, we are limited to our bodies in terms of our consciousness, our awareness. So this is an example of our limited personality, our limited consciousness. So we have to be able to understand that it would be possible for somebody, not for a human personality like us, but for an unlimited personality, to be aware of everything, everywhere. So that's the nature of God. That's the clearest, simplest way that I can put it, is just that we are conscious, each one of us is aware, we are limitedly aware of our immediate surroundings, of our bodies. Similarly, God is aware, but is aware of everything, everywhere. All right, so that's awareness, that's consciousness. Maybe that's all I'll say now. I think because I see there's some questions, we will take those now because I acknowledge this is a very, very difficult topic for some people. For others it may be very simple, but I'm just going to see if there are any questions first because I don't want to go too far ahead. So many people are saying hello and how are you? We have good morning from Malaysia, Muhammad Ali Sahib. Assalamu alaikum ji. Very nice to have somebody from Malaysia with us also. And let's just see. Okay. Here's a longer comment or question. Rafia Latif says, Sir, I missed your class on 31st October. You have mentioned that very slowly and gradually humans move to higher densities, meaning by spiritual evolution. Sir, is this transformation possible in a single lifespan of 60 to 70 years on the average? That's a very, very good question, and the answer is no. This gradual evolvement from one density to a higher density takes thousands of years, usually. It can be many, many thousands of years, tens of thousands, even millions of years to go through the whole span of 7 densities. And, as the Law of One books explain, there are 7 densities, and the 8th density is the first density of a new octave, a new series of 8 densities. So it takes a long, long time to gradually, spiritually develop through all of these densities. All right. In fact, the time frame that's given in the Law of One books is, at least this is in our solar system or on our Earth, I'm not sure how far this time frame expands and goes beyond our solar system, but the 75,000 year time frame is given as a common one, at least, that a planet, with the residents of that planet, I guess, but a planet usually takes at least one cycle, or usually about one cycle, of 75,000 years to evolve from one density to the higher density. So that just gives one idea from one source of how long it takes to travel from one, or to evolve from one density to another. And just to review these densities, the first density is elemental, just like water, fire, earth. These are characterizing the first density. The second density is living things like plants and animals. The third density is human, what we are familiar with in human life. The fourth density is what we as a planet are just moving into now, which is characterized by a higher consciousness, in which telepathy is a universal characteristic of those in the fourth density. That means everyone can read everyone else's mind. So that is the fourth density. And then the higher densities are harder for us to understand, but they are described as wisdom, and that's the fifth density. And the sixth density is a combination of love and wisdom. The fourth density is the density of love and unity. The fifth density is the density of wisdom. The sixth density is a combination of love and wisdom. And the seventh density is described by those sixth density beings from whom this information comes, again in the Law of One series. The seventh density is described as the final density within one octave. So this is very similar to something, by the way, that Rumi wrote about this evolution, spiritual evolution from one type of existence, from a mineral stage to the animal stage to the human stage. So these different densities take a long, long time to pass through, much more than 60 or 70 years of a single lifetime. Very good question. Thank you very much, Rafi Latif, for asking that. Okay, Miriam Zerman is asking, or if we say we as humans in some ways manifest God's attributes. Yes, that's a nice way to put it. That's a very good way to put it, that we manifest some of God's attributes. So the attributes that we have, they are manifestations of God's attributes. Therefore, everything that we have must be present in God. So that was what I was explaining about consciousness or awareness. Because we are conscious or aware, therefore God must also be conscious or aware.
On Facebook.
I'm live, yes.
No, it's not on. It's not coming on.
It's not coming on?
No.
Then how come?
It doesn't show. If you look on your Facebook page, it doesn't show that you're on.
But people are responding to my comments. They're saying things.
I'll have to do something. I'll have to look.
My wife just told me that but somebody else, Hamad Ali, is also saying broadcast. There seems to be something, maybe he's having the same problem, I don't know, but it looks to me like this is going on, and some people seem to be responding to what I'm saying, so I think some people are seeing. So please try again to check and see if you can get on.
Can you try it?
Hmm?
You want me to go try it?
Yes, please do. Okay, so let's see, where was I? Rafi Latif is saying, Allah is all-hearing, all-seeing, and all-knowing. Yes, very good point. So we can hear, we can see, and we can know, but very limitedly. You can hear me now because of technology, but ordinarily we can only hear for a few hundred meters, or if it's a very loud sound, a few miles or a few kilometers, but not. And we can see a very, very limited range of electromagnetic. Okay. So we are able to see, but only a very, very limited range of electromagnetic radiation, and only a very limited distance. And similarly, we can know things, but we can know only a very limited amount. So just like we hear, we see, we also know, God also hears, sees, and knows, but hears everything, sees everything, and knows everything. So thank you very much. That's a good addition to this, what I'm explaining. Let's see, Imran Bajwa is saying, I don't know, but I think you have a reason on somewhere, and humanity have to worry about that. I'm not sure I quite understand what you're saying, so please explain it a little more clearly. You have a reason on somewhere. All right, please explain, because I can't understand quite what you're saying. Okay, all right, so several people are saying you are live, so yes, you are live. Okay, thank you. It is showing. All right, other people are also saying fine, no problem. All right, so I think that the main point that I wanted to make today is now clear. We are going to proceed for the next few classes on this topic of God, and I will be using the Urantia book even more. That's actually where this is based, what I've been talking about is based on. So I think it's a very, very important book. As I've written recently, I don't think it's perfect. I think there are mistakes in it. I do believe that it's written by or shared by extraterrestrials, some of whom are very, very elevated, and most of whom, if not all of whom, understand and know a lot more than human beings do. So I think it's a very valuable source of information that we should not accept blindly, of course, but we should study. So I'm studying it myself, and I'm encouraging you to study it and to listen if you're interested in this subject of extraterrestrial spirituality. Keep listening, and I'm going to go into this more and more. Okay, we have another comment here from Rafia Latif. Here I want to share a concept my father taught me, of course after having learnt from his spiritual teachers, that Allah doesn't keep a storehouse of spirits, rather the same spirits keep coming to earth again and again in human bodies, just to complete the process of evolution to higher levels, densities. What do you say, sir? This is a very important question, a very good question. And the reason why it's so important is because there are different understandings about it. And I can say two things. Let me just say two things about it. Definitely, I have no doubt, there is some connection between different lives. In other words, I myself have memories of previous lives. And I have no doubt about that. Some of the memories are crystal clear, and some of them have been confirmed by other people and in other ways too. So that's the first point. But I really don't understand how I am connected with those previous lives that I remember. In other words, was that me that was experiencing those lives that I'm somehow connected to? I don't understand exactly what that connection is. So, but somehow it seems that if, let's just suppose for now that that was a different person who is having that lifetime, which I can somehow have a connection with and have a memory of, whatever that person learned in that lifetime somehow has benefited me. And I am going on from there. I'm learning based upon those experiences already. That is quite clear to me. And much more than that, I can't say right now. But yes, it's definitely the process of evolution takes much more than one lifetime. And some people say that when you leave this body, you remain in a sleeping state for some time until a certain date or a certain day, called the Day of Judgment, when all the sleeping souls are awakened, and then they continue on. Others say that when you die, you don't go into a sleeping state, but you go immediately into another life, which can be somewhere else, like in a heaven or in a hell, or some people say it can be on a same sort of earthly status. Again, that is something that I am not certain about, but what I will say is this, that when we die, I'm certain that we don't end. That means the consciousness, the individual self, because I know that the self is not dependent on the body, because I myself have had out-of-body experiences where my body was somewhere else and I moved somewhere else. So I'm sure that we're not dependent on the body, so when the body dies, we don't die. But exactly where we go and how we progress, it may be different for different people. And this may be why people have different ideas. It may be that some people, maybe most people, when they die, they go into a sort of sleeping state for a while until they are revived at a future date, like a day of judgment. That's one possibility, that's what many people or most people experience, and therefore some people have experienced that and written about that. So that's one possibility. Another group of people, if that is true, that different people have different experiences after dying, and some do go into a sleeping state for a period of time, it could be that others immediately awaken from leaving this body. Again, it can be in a higher state, for example. This is pretty widely accepted in most religious traditions, that at least saints or certain types of martyrs, they can immediately go to a higher stage of existence, a heavenly stage of existence. So again, it's possible that different people experience different things, and that's why we have different reports or different ideas about that. But just to answer your question, I agree with you that there must be a longer period of evolution, more than just one lifetime. But whether the same spirits keep coming to earth again and again, as you say your father was taught by his teachers, or whether on dying we go into a sleeping state for a certain period of time, that I can't say for sure. All right. Imran Bajwa says, somewhere mean what you are talking about aliens. Okay, I'm just going back to your previous comment. Where was it? Imran Bajwa said, I don't know, but I think you have a reason on somewhere and humanity have to worry about that. I think it means that. Okay, so let me just see what you are explaining here. Somewhere mean what you are talking about aliens. So still not completely clear to me what you're going to have to explain a little bit more. What I'm talking about aliens, this is largely from my personal experience, or it's from books that I have read and studied, which I believe are coming from aliens. So extraterrestrials. I shouldn't say aliens because I don't really like the word aliens at all, because just like people from different countries on this planet are called aliens, but we're all members of one human race, one family. So similarly, people from other planets, I don't think we should call aliens. They are part of our family, part of one family, even if from different species or different races. As long as they're intelligent life forms, they are in even less intelligent life forms like animals and plants. They're also all part of one family. So aliens, I don't call them aliens. They are our brothers and sisters. But I'm sorry, Imran Bajwa, I still don't understand your question. So if you can explain a little bit more. Shagufta Ali, when are you going to visit Pakistan? I don't know. I have no plan right now. Rafia Latif, children of this generation are more aware than those who were born a decade ago. This is actually a very good point, and I'm certain about this because I'm 70 years old, so I've had a chance to observe different generations, and both in the United States and in other countries. I've spent time in Pakistan. The last more than 10 years, I would say, the last 20 years or 30 years, But certainly those who are now in their teens and 20s, university students, at this time in the last few years are much more aware than previous generations, much more perceptive and intelligent. Um, so I think that's very true, what you're saying. All over the world, I guess, but certainly everywhere that I've visited, that I've spent time with people, I can see that there is a new type of person, a new type of young person who is more advanced in many ways, more aware, more spiritually attuned often than previous generations. Of course, there's all sorts of people in every generation, but I agree with your point. Yes, the children of this generation are more aware than those who were born a decade ago. I'm not sure if decade is the word you meant to use there, but a generation or two ago, yes, young people there's something special. How about younger people in their teens and 20s? It was a new development in humanity. Maybe it started before that, but it could have been a few decades even. But it's increasing. The awareness is increasing, I don't doubt. Okay, Shaquille Sibtain says, I don't get that. Same spirit coming back. Is there a shortage of spirits? Or if the spirits could not finish the level of density, then how many times they can come? Does not make any sense. Well, if there is a lot of evolution, a lot of spiritual development that could take a long time, then why doesn't it make sense? That I don't think there's a shortage of spirits, but if you see the level of awareness of some people and the level of awareness of other people, I'm just saying, a person who's very unaware and a person who's highly aware, there's a big difference between those two levels of awareness. And to evolve from one level of awareness, a low level of awareness, to a high level of awareness, certainly takes more than 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 years. We don't see very many people who evolve in one single lifetime from being very foolish and selfish and ignorant to being very aware and loving. And so I don't see why you say it does not make any sense. There certainly is not any shortage of spirits. That's not what it is. But the densities, especially if you understand about the densities, the human density, the third density, is only one of many densities. So even within the human density, there are many, many levels. That takes a long, long time to evolve through that. Now, whether that all happens on this planet or other planets or other heavens, that's another question. But certainly it makes very good sense, to me at least, that the human awareness takes more than one lifetime to develop from a very low level of awareness to a very high level of awareness. In fact, why are some people highly aware, even as young children, and some people are unaware, even as old people? There are different levels of awareness, and it takes time to evolve from lower to higher. All right. Miriam Zerman said, Zerman, I would be very keen to hear about the reality of our soul from you, sir. I am sure you can enlighten us all with the realities of soul and ego, ruh and nafs. This is a big topic. It's much bigger and much more complex than simply talking about soul and ego. I can just say briefly that the Urantia book describes many more aspects of the self. But just to take these two words that you've used, soul and ego. By soul, I assume you mean the spiritual, the ruh, the spiritual aspect of the self, and the ego meaning the lower, nafs. So the soul is described in the Urantia book. It depends on what word you use, because the same word, soul, the word spirit, can be used. In fact, my wife just had a question on her Facebook page. What do you say about the difference between soul and spirit? And there were quite a variety of answers to that. but the soul and the spirit are two different words that we use. They are two different aspects of the self also. So you didn't ask about spirit, you just asked about soul and ego. But taking the spiritual aspect of the self, soul or spirit, and the material, the ego, which doesn't only mean the body. Nafs sometimes means the body, but nafs also means the egoistic or egotistic aspect of ourselves. I would just say that the soul is or can be eternal. If we develop spiritually, then we certainly live eternally. If we don't develop spiritually, then I can't say that we live eternally. It could be that we devolve into a hellish condition where we can't really be aware of anything, because maybe we don't want to be aware of anything because of the bad choices we've made, the selfish, egotistic choices we've made. But I will go into this topic. In fact, that will be the next topic. After we talk a little bit more about God, we will talk about the soul also, and the relationship of the soul and God, because that's also a very, very important topic. Again, there are a variety of ideas about the relationship of the soul and God. Some people say the soul and God are identical. Some people say God is the master and the soul is the servant. Some people say that there's a very intimate relationship that can be developed between the soul and God. Not that they're one and the same, but they can become united, retaining their individual identities, but living together in oneness. That means pure love and total harmony and agreement. So we will discuss the soul and ego, different other aspects of the self also, and we will discuss the soul and the spirit, and we will discuss the soul and God in future classes. So thank you very much for your very good question, and we definitely will talk about that much more in future classes also. Okay, Rafi Latif says, thank you for correcting, sir. I meant 100 years or more. I think, yes, certainly 100 years. There has been a big change in humanity in the last 100 years, and I think there's been a big change in humanity in much less than 100 years also. Of course, they say that in the 1960s there was a new type of awareness and consciousness, and I accept that idea. I think there was another new type of consciousness that started emerging, when would we say, 20, 30 years ago? So yes, there certainly have been major changes in the quality and the awareness of people being born in the last 100 years or in the last few decades also. Okay, I think we're getting some really good questions and topics here. Zoheb Sheikh says, Zoheb Sheikh, what do you know about Jalaluddin Rumi? I have read quite a bit of Rumi. In fact, I don't have it right here on my table right now, but a few days ago I had a book of Rumi's poetry on my desk. I think I can see it right over there. Let me go get it too, so you can see. So, of course, this is backwards, but the Illuminated Rumi. This is a book of Rumi's poetry in English, of course, very English translation, very beautiful book. So I read Rumi, I love Rumi. In fact, when I was visiting Lahore many years ago in the 1980s, 1990s, even 2000s, I had a group of friends who were reading Rumi at least once a week, would meet. In fact, when I was visiting Lahore in the 1980s and 1990s, they would meet on Monday, and I would time my visits to Lahore to make sure I was there on Monday to meet with them, and we would read Rumi in the original Persian, and then with an Urdu translation, and then some discussion. And it's amazing. Rumi is a very, very deep, amazing spiritual thinker, and of course one of the best poets in world history. A few years ago, when an English translation of Rumi's poetry came out, it was the best-selling poetry book in America. So he was the most popular poet in America that year. So Rumi is an amazing personality. All right, Zoheb Sheikh says, He was the ultimate soul and Khudi explorer with the help of Shamsi Tabriz's intellectualism. Thank you very much. Yes, he was a very, very ultimate soul, yes, very, very deep. And of course he was a disciple of Shamsi Tabriz. All right, let's see. Zohaib Sheikh, have you ever experienced this paranormal within yourself and dimensions of Khudi? I have had a number of paranormal experiences, yes. If you want to read about some of them, you can go to my website, allintelligentlife.com, and in the section About Us, I tell about some of my paranormal experiences. I'll just mention one or two quickly right now. When I was in college, one of my professors had a daughter who was about 11 or 12 years old who passed away. I had met her, but I didn't really know her very well. But a few days after she had died, I was sitting in my college dormitory room writing in my notebook when I felt her presence. And I felt she was telling me she wanted me to send a message, to write a message from her to her parents. So I started writing. I was already in a sort of altered state, so I was sort of in like a trance state, but I just started writing very quickly, and I wrote 15 or 20 pages. And when I was finished, I was a little embarrassed to think about I might go to my college professor and tell him, your daughter has sent me a message for you. But after several days of anxiety about this, I did take up the idea. I took courage and went to his office and told him, and he invited me to come to his home and meet with his wife also. And so I did, and I brought the notebook and I read it to them. I showed it to them, actually. I didn't read it to them. I just showed them the notebook, and they started reading it. And immediately both of them started crying. And I was worried. Did I do something wrong? What's wrong here? And then they said, we accept that this is our daughter's message to us. It is written in her handwriting. I'd never seen her handwriting, but it was written in her handwriting. So that was one of my first very clear paranormal experiences within myself. Many others have been there, but yes, the answer to your question is yes. All right. Ali Gilani asks, Sir, do you think has Ra arrived on Earth recently? Yes. Ra returned to Earth, although I don't believe he has very much manifested himself or themselves. Ra is not one individual. Ra is a social memory complex, is the words that he or they use. It is a whole society of people who are in perfect telepathic harmony. Therefore, they are sort of one person, one collective. But he did manifest himself or themselves through a medium. Carla Ruckert was her name, and as a result of that, the Law of One books were written. And Ra is now present also, and is communicating. Evidently, and this is not 100% sure, but it appears to me that Corey Good is in touch with a person called Ra Tir Air, I think is the way he pronounces it, maybe a little slightly different pronunciation, but who may be one of the Ra also. He may be one of the people who are that social collective memory group, Ra. So yes, and certainly Ra, as I said earlier, was on Earth physically 11,000 years ago. Certainly is present on the Earth, although not really manifesting himself so physically as he did at that time in Egypt 11,000 years ago, where, as I understand, everyone could see him. But now it's not possible for everyone to see him, but he is around, yes. It was the best-selling poetry in U.S., yes. Rumi's book on Rumi's poetry, a translation of Rumi's poetry, was the best-selling poetry book in the United States several years ago. Shabir Hussain Baloch, sorry dear sir, I'm late to join today. Today's topic is too complicated and unfortunately I missed all of the most important part, so I can see it after. Make some questions for sure. Thanks for your time. Okay. Muhammad Shamsi Tabriz, Assalamu alaikum sir, please define about your Rancha book. Well, very briefly, the Rancha book was received, is the right word I think, between 1925 and 1935 by a group of Americans, or mostly Americans, who, it's a very strange story really, but this group of people were receiving messages through a person who at night when asleep somehow wrote these papers. So we don't know who that person was. His identity was never revealed because they said they didn't want him to be considered special. But in any case, as these papers were read, people realized, wow, there's something really amazing here, even though this man was totally unaware of what he was writing. He was actually the patient of a doctor, and that doctor was the one, a psychiatrist, who was reading these papers. Maybe they thought there was something wrong with him, but when they started finding incredible information in them, they started taking them more seriously, and then so that's the way the book appeared. And then it was edited for many years and finally published, I think, first in 1955. So the book, as I've explained before, is obviously meant for a Christian audience. That is, it's not, I would say it's not a book that is appropriate for all people in all time and place. It was specifically meant for a certain group of people, especially 1925 to 1935, people of that mentality who were Christians, because it uses a lot of Christian terminology, and the largest emphasis in the book is on Jesus. So it was obviously meant for Christians especially, and it is acceptable, more easily acceptable, I should say, to Christians than to others because of its use of Christian terminology. But in my opinion, it may need to be presented in a slightly different way for some people, but it's full of very, very important information. I don't take it as a revealed holy book, although some people do. I take it as a book which was given to us through the cooperation of a number of human beings and extraterrestrials, and it has a lot of very, very important information. As if you haven't seen already, you'll see the more I continue using it in this discussion about the nature of God, it gets really mind-boggling. And it is available online. If you look below this post on my Facebook page, you'll see that, how you can read it free online. But I'll warn you right now, some people have already complained it's too complex, it's too complicated. It's extremely complex, it's extremely complicated. But I'm going to try to explain simply some of the ideas more simply. All right, let's just see if there are any other good questions here. Zohaib Sheikh is asking good questions. The message was within the heard frequency, or was just the words came in your mind? You're talking about the message I got from the deceased daughter of my professor. It was not in the heard frequency, no, I just heard it in my mind. Shabir Hussain Baloch, Rumi is Iqbal's spiritual teacher. Iqbal's khudi clearly came from Rumi, yes. Allama Iqbal was deeply influenced by Rumi, as many, many people have been, and many people have been influenced by Iqbal also, so they're being influenced by Rumi indirectly also. Thank you. Zohaib Sheikh, can you read one of the best stanza from the poetry of Rumi's book and explain its meaning, please? I want to see how deep you are. Well, I don't want to take time to do that now. This is a class about extraterrestrial spirituality, not a test of my ability to explain Rumi. So we can do that some other time if you like, but I'm not going to do that now. Ihtisham Ahmed, sir, you daily came live at this time? Not daily, but on Monday and Thursday in America, Tuesday and Friday in Pakistan is the usual time of this class 7. Today it's one day late, so it's Friday evening here in America, Saturday morning in Pakistan. So that's the schedule. Every Monday and Thursday evening at 7 p.m. California time, which is every Tuesday and Friday morning, 7 a.m. in Pakistan time. Okay, Ihtisham Ahmed says, today is my first day, so you can go back and read my previous class descriptions on my website, that is allintelligentlife.com, or if you go to my Facebook page, as you must be on it now, you can see Institute of All Intelligent Life. You can just click on, that will just take you to the Facebook page, I guess. You have to go to www.allintelligentlife.com, and there on my website you will see posts for each of the previous classes. So you can go, and there is a description of the posts, 2 or 3 paragraphs, and then you can also watch the class on Facebook from those descriptions. You can just click on that there. Okay, I think we're getting to the end of this class. There are a couple of more questions I will take. Why extraterrestrial knowledge is important? It depends on what you mean by important. For some people, maybe it's not important. Maybe some people don't want to be involved in it because they may be even afraid of it. But for me, extraterrestrial knowledge is important because I see that extraterrestrials often, some may be bad, and so we don't want to get knowledge from them. They will be misleading. But there are good extraterrestrials who have much more knowledge than we do, and if we get knowledge from them, that will be good for us. We can learn more. So that's why extraterrestrial knowledge is important for me. When we don't value basic lessons of humanity. Well, I think that extraterrestrials are helping us to value the basic lessons of humanity. So I don't think there's any contradiction. In fact, I would say that the basic lessons of humanity have come from extraterrestrials. Angels are often considered the messengers who have brought us our basic value lessons. They are extraterrestrials. Are angels from this planet? So an extraterrestrial means somebody who's not from this planet. So angels have come from other planets, and they have brought us basic lessons, which we don't value enough yet still, but more extraterrestrials are also bringing us messages which can help us enhance our following of our basic lessons that we've received in the past, and also get more messages, which we have to be careful, we have to discriminate, we have to make sure that we get the messages from a good source, because certainly there are selfish or satanic forces who can try to mislead us among extraterrestrials. So we have to be very careful, but I believe that there is very good, important knowledge available from extraterrestrials, and I think the Law of One books is one such source, and the Urantia book is another such source. Again, not following them blindly, but studying them carefully. All right, Zoeb Sheikh says, what do you think the Voyager 2 space probe can reach to some ET civilization? The scientists may or may not know, the scientists who are behind Voyager 2, they may or may not know. But in fact, there are many ET civilizations who have come to this planet, and there are human beings who have contacted extraterrestrial civilizations on other planets. So Voyager 2 is just what shall we say? It's not the real thing. The real thing, the secret space programs, are being concealed from us, from the vast majority of human beings. So Voyager 2 is not the real space probe. There are many, many human space vehicles that have visited other planets where there are ET civilizations, and they have contacted them, and they're even trading with them on an ongoing basis. So don't believe everything NASA tells you. Don't believe everything you read in the mass media about space travel. It's very, very limited, and a lot of disinformation is there. Zoeb shape, or the ETs exist in some other dimension of the universe. ETs do exist in other dimensions. They also exist in this dimension. There are ETs on Mars. There are ETs on other planets in our solar system. There are ETs on other planets in other star systems. Hundreds, millions, billions, unlimited numbers of ET civilizations exist in our galaxy and other galaxies, and we are in contact with them. Both individuals have been in contact with them by them coming here and contacting, and human groups have been traveling secretly. That is, it's not been advertised or publicized in the mass media, but there are groups of human beings for not maybe 100 years, but close to 100 years, since the 1930s, if not the 1920s, Germans had started the first space probes and the first space missions, and they went to the moon back in the 1930s, 1940s. They went to Mars, and that of course was kept secret. But yes, ETs exist in this dimension and also in other dimensions. Farhan Ahmed says, sir, is it paving path for Pak Rasta so people are more open-minded and accept different perspectives and respect difference of opinion? Yes, that's a good insight on your part. I am hoping people will open their minds and see that we can get information from extraterrestrial sources. Okay, I think I said I was going to take a couple more questions, so I think I will end now. Okay, Farhan Ahmed says, my last question for this class, I used to use lucid dream, and I started having experience of being simultaneously at different places, doing different things at the same time, and hearing and listening different voices and experiences are so intense that I stopped doing meditation. Well, yes, this is a real experience that we can experience being elsewhere than in our body, and we can experience being in different places at the same time also. So what I would suggest to you is that you find somebody who can help you. You should not stop doing meditation. You should practice maybe a simpler type of meditation, or a meditation that you can control if you find these things too worrying to you or too disturbing, or too intense. But it's important to develop your abilities. And meditation is very, very important. So just try another form of meditation and try to find somebody who can help you. All right, Farhan, I'm sorry you said that would be your last question, and now you've asked another question, so I don't have to answer it. I will guide you through these classes, yes. Okay, Zoeb Sheikh Farhan, I don't believe you, that's stupid. No, that's not stupid. Many, many people have had such experiences. So, okay, we're going to end now. And thank you all very, very much. And I look forward to seeing you, or seeing your comments at least, on Monday evening in America, 7 p.m. California time. And that will be, oh wait, it's going to be a change now because daylight savings time is coming. So let me just think a second. I'm going to have to adjust I'm going to have to think, because in America, starting this Sunday, the time is going to shift 1 hour. So I will either change the time in America, or if I keep the same time, it will change in Pakistan by 1 hour. It will go, let me just think a second. It will go 1 hour earlier. So I will perhaps change the time to 6 p.m. in California, and that will keep it 7 a.m. in Pakistan. So next week we will do 6 p.m. in California time on the evening of every Monday and Thursday, and that will become 7 a.m., the same time, on, just a second here, Tuesday and Friday in Pakistan. Okay? I'll just repeat that one more time. The class time will remain the same in Pakistan, 7 a.m. every Tuesday and Friday. And the time in California, with daylight savings time changing our times, our clocks, it will be, if I'm not making a mistake, I think so, maybe it's going to be 8. I'm going to have to, let me just think a second. I always get this a little mixed up. It changes 1 hour. So the time in Pakistan will remain the same. The time in America, it will shift to the daylight saving, from the daylight savings time to the standard time. I'm trying to think right now if it goes 1 hour earlier or 1 hour later. Maybe it's the other way. I think it is 8, so it'll go at 8 p.m. in California time. Okay. All right. Thank you all very, very much. Look forward to seeing you again. Thank you all very much for very, very good questions today.